Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackie. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital. Lifting up, how to lift culture in declining markets is a really important thing. Dean, I always remember that quote, when people are winning, they're easy to manage. When they're not, they're much harder to manage. And I think that literally, you can't take on that heat too much and you just got to realise it is what it is. But, what are some of the things that we can do to lift up culture? And I have a quick look at some initiatives that you've been doing internally. And, I know you've done some really great things to get people around each other and to understand and to help them to realise and give perspective and insight. You're really good at that and driving those events. Tell us a little bit about it. Lifting up culture, what are some things that you think right now, hey, here are some quick wins and here's some more important things, to be able to make sure you've got a really strong backbone inside of that business? Yeah,
look, easy. There's probably 5 or 6 things we could talk about today. I guess where it all starts, Josh, at the heart of it, I think in the current environment or when things are quite tough and markets are hard, then people have lots of things coming up from different angles. They're hearing stuff in the media. They're dealing with tough situations with their clients. Potentially they've got tax problems. They've got cash flow. They've got lots of other pressures. So we just have to understand and accept that sometimes, that's going to result in behaviours and feelings that are not always ideal. And so what are some of the things that you can do? And the things that I've learned through all the different real estate cycles is to right now in particular is a really important time just to keep the communication up, like really overly communicating. And I think people want to hear more about what's going on. People want to be much more open and transparent because they get worried, right? And so they otherwise they start jumping at shadows, thinking you haven't got things under control or stuff isn't happening or whatever. They make those stories up in their own head and they start worrying about stuff that really don't need to worry about, and then that can create an issue. It can create anxiety, right? And your job is to reduce that anxiety by increasing your communication. It can actually lead to lower trust too. Right now people need to know they can trust you, so and they can trust the environment they're in and that they've got safety. So increasing your communication increases that level of trust. And it also creates more alignment. So, if there's a time your business is going to get off track, it's when people, maybe throwing stones at each other and everyone's a bit grumpy and all that stuff and things happen unnecessarily. So the more you can communicate and the more you can create forums to communicate, the better. And so there's different ways, obviously you've got written communication and, you can do Zoom calls or whatever. And then obviously weekly communication. There's different types of communication. And also how do you make your communication and your contact point with your people fun? So, we've done, to your point, you start thinking about events. We've run a number of events this year. We knew things were going to be a bit tough, so we did a welcome back party this year, which is something we haven't done before, just to get everybody connected, reconnected and collaborating. We've done a number of events with yourself, which is about training, learning and so on, and that's also had really some good energy points around it. And then we've sort of taken the team completely out of their real estate environment and taken them out and did some work with the Sydney Kings, learning about the 1%ers and resilience and great teamwork and lots of little things that really to lift the team spirit and create a level of engagement because, it's very easy at the moment just to get distracted by all of the ups and downs of what's going on in the cycle, but you've got to rise up above that and know that that's going to change at some point and keep everybody connected. So I'd say, ramp up your communication. The other thing I was talking to my team about today, I said, look, there's lots of small wins that people are having. They're hearing lots of negative news, but keep your eye open for little wins that are happening on a personal level and a local level and celebrate those because, at the moment, people who have a negative bias, people are looking out for negativity, and if they keep catching,
and they're collecting it.
Yeah, they're collecting it, right? And the problem is that as they're collecting it, one little thing comes up, and then it becomes a much bigger problem because it's a snowball effect from all the other negativity bias that they've been paying attention to. So this is the time to ramp up some good news, right? So you want to really make sure that you've got some really good sort of small wins. Everyone sort of feels valued and supported. I mean, that's the next part, really saying how in a difficult cycle do people feel valued and supported? Because otherwise they're like, what are you doing for me? I'm not getting what I need. I want a bigger share of the pie, and I'm this, I'm that, and you guys are, etc. They get this mantra that goes on. So I think if you, and some of the things you could obviously do, it's ramp up training. I know people are cutting back training, Josh, at the moment, where I'm sitting and going, this is the time to ramp your training up. This is when people need it the most. This is when they're the most vulnerable. So how do you provide training? How do you make sure that that people, if they've got a concern, they can raise it and be heard? It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to have to jump at everything that everybody wants, but to people to be heard and understand, for you to understand. How do you create an environment when people are struggling potentially out of their own to have more collaboration, to actually have them working together more? Because I think if people work together, they get a more sense of belonging, and you can actually work through some of the issues as opposed if they're out there working in a silo. So doing all of that sort of stuff helps people understand. It creates a sense of mutuality around your environment. So
what I love about that, though, is that what you're actually talking about is like shifting it. So there I was. I go to London in the first week of December, and I get this opportunity to work with an amazing business over there called Location, an incredible leader, Vicky Brivis. And I turn up early, because it's the first time I've done an event at their office, which is, it's a really special thing. This guy's flying from Australia, and it's amazing going to work with a brand new client, right? So we've had a few interactions in the past, but we walk into the office and, I go to do the handshake and I'm like, it's a bit European, and so maybe it's the kiss either side on the cheek, what is going to be the hug or not? And all of a sudden, bang, there's this high five. And I'm like, oh, hey, Vicky. And she's like, oh, that's what we do around here, just so it's good energy inside the business. Everyone high fives.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So I started to watch it, and then as the 20 people came through the door, everyone's high-fiving each other, everyone high-fives Vicky on the way in, and that's just the way they have great energy inside the business. I'm like, wow, that's a cultural shifter. And Dean, you see this when I go in to do any audience work. I have a quick, what's the mood of this audience like? Are they energetic and driven? Are they a bit flat? Are they a bit negative? What's their zone? And what I got to do is straight away is I've got to get some sort of form of an icebreaker to get them to move quickly. It's not ideal as a presenter, but I'll walk in there and say, hey, Dean, guys, let's just turn to the person next to you, and I want you to give them a compliment about something you've always admired them. Oh, Dean, I really love your haircut. Oh, Josh, really love your eye colour, whatever. And everyone starts laughing, and then you got the energy and you got the momentum. Whatever happens after that point is awesome because I've given it perspective. So what I found is that ultimately, if you can pull people up into visionary space, they're much more receptive. If you stay down in tactical space, they're not as receptive. And so I've got to pull them up into vision first. And then once I've got the crowd, then I can then move into the tactical components. I now do this inside of sales meeting agendas. I'm like, okay, great. So and to take your good points, I go, okay, great. First minute, good values. Who's lived those out? Next 2 minutes, what's some good news? Well done to Kathy on her first ever listing, and well done to this particular person, Ben, who's just got the biggest listing ever, and whatever. So then that way you're actually sharing the good stuff that's actually happening in the business, and then start to change things. So okay, great. So we've got a new listing. Does anyone have a buyer seller that would buy that and then naturally sell theirs? And then okay, great. We've just seen that this particular one's sold. How many buyers went through that? Who's left over? And what should we be taking them to next? And so what you're trying to do is to get behaviours sitting in and around what were previously dead agenda items.
Well, let's face it, right? People turn up because they want to be great. They want to find their greatness, right? And sometimes when there's some negative bias going on, they're forgetting about that greatness. So to actually hear that there's some good things happening just gives them that little bit of uplift to think, actually, you know what, maybe I just need to shift my energy here a little bit. And our job in this type of environment is to help people shift their energy, yeah? And so the other thing I'd say, Josh, in addition to what you just said, is to say, how do you stay curious, right? Because if you're innovating as well, because otherwise, again, if it's sort of more of the same, how do you encourage innovation and maybe in an environment which is quite tough to get people to think outside the box? How do we think outside the box about our solutions? Because some of the best ideas come up in difficult times, because it's not until a difficult time comes up that it forces you to actually think about how to do it better and smarter. So inside the business culturally, if you can continue to try and push people to get into training, to think about how do we get better, how do we improve, and focus on the customer. How do we continue to focus on the customer solution, right? Because that's what we're there for. And if we're innovating through that period, it just gives people some excitement to go, well, there's good things happening as well, not just the same old. So I think
which is about like shifting perspective, right?
100%. And so if you're going to be there, I think as a leader, it's about, you need to lead by example. And what about lead by example doesn't mean you need to go out and do everything, but how do you actually stay solutions focused? Because everyone's into problem zone, right? And it doesn't mean you have to
problem funders are cheap, mate.
Oh, totally. And it's exhausting for everybody. So if you stay focused in a solutions way and help people find their own solutions. You don't have to be the solution maker, but you can be the solution facilitator. If you're doing that and you're staying, people can find a way. But if you're actually not finding a way, if you're just basically catching all their negativity and not helping them find solutions to a better outcome, then those issues become worse.
So the big conversation here, hit refresh and actually re-get that culture to where you want it to be, and just don't let it just go on and fester, and get yourself back into a good position. And Dean, a little exercise I did the other day, I said, okay, great. What am I grateful for? Amazing parents, great childhood, amazing business, great clients, that's you. Incredible health. I've got a beautiful house. I've got some investment properties. I'm lucky. I've got a great sauna. I love motorcycles, mountain bikes, power of reading, creative energy, creative thinking, reputation, character in the industry. I've got a great PT down in Melbourne at Maddox. World travel. I get a lot of work in Dubai. I just love oxygen and clean water. I know that's simple. Great clothes. I've got some financial strength. I've got some desire. I've got some opportunity. I've got some really nice running gear I like at the moment that I like to run in, and I've got my laptop's cool, and I also know the power of a warm fire on a cold day. Like you read through that, and it's like, well, actually, what's wrong? Well, I've got too much work on. Let's have a look at that. Yeah. And I think that that's actually the whole thing, is that what you do as a leader is you help to give people perspective and insight that changes actions, and actions ultimately change those behaviours, which then ultimately is the way you live out your career.